about some of the syndromes and conditions that you guys are likely to encounter that may result in hearing loss and other symptoms that your patients may be experiencing. This is not exhaustive, but I'm going to try and highlight the ones that I think you're going to be most likely to run into. Because in addition to the hearing loss, some of these have other important factors or considerations that you need to be aware of. The number one cause of hearing loss is noise exposure. So if you're dealing with adults, more often than not, that is going to play at least a part in their hearing problem. There's phototoxic compounds, even aspirin. So if you're working with adults, particularly older adults, and they're on aspirin therapy, typically they're only taking 81 milligrams of baby aspirin, which should not be phototoxic. But there are some individuals who end up needing to take higher doses, and so that can create a problem.
Are you saying aspirin?
Aspirin.
Okay, I can.
But there are a lot of things that are phototoxic. Most of the myosin drugs, like erythromycin, azithromycin, vancomycin, gentamicin, in certain doses can be phototoxic, and every person has a different sensitivity. It's sort of like, alcohol. They say if your alcohol level is 0.08 or higher, you're technically impaired. But probably every single person in this classroom, it would take a different amount of alcohol to make them hit that level. And it's the same way with a lot of medications. Pharmaceutical agents don't affect every patient the same way. So we typically, if we have a patient that's going to be on one of those phototoxic agents, they'll do phototoxic audiologic monitoring. So before, right as they're starting it, we do a baseline comprehensive assessment, and then we will monitor them frequently so that if we start seeing any signs of changes in the auditory system, we can alert the docs, and if they can perhaps juggle the dosages at all, we can stop the progression. Not always. Heredity can play a big role, but then there's lots of diseases and illnesses, and those are the things we're really going to concentrate more on today, trauma and aging. Different conditions are going to cause different types of loss, different degrees of loss, and different configurations of the audiogram. And that's important to know why. Why do you care what the severity and the configuration is like? If I have a patient that has a flat 30 dB hearing loss, is that going to have the same impact on them as my person who has normal hearing sloping to a severe, profound loss above 2,000 hertz? What's going to be the difference? Exactly, yeah. They're going to have the person with that sloping loss, first of all, the severity is worse, and it's cutting right through the middle of that speech pattern. And we know that the bulk of speech information falls between 1 and 4,000 hertz. Well, if they've got the sloping loss in the severe to profound range starting at 2,000 hertz, they're going to be missing a lot more speech information at a conversational level than a person with a 30 dB flat loss. Because a 30 dB flat loss, when we know that normal conversation occurs at around 60 dB, they're going to make pure conversational speech. It's just it's not quiet. Okay? So you do need to be concerned about that. So let's talk about some conditions and syndromes that can cause hearing loss. Diabetes is one that for a long time has really gone ignored in terms of the potential impact it can have on the auditory system. Folks who are diabetic are encouraged and told to get frequent visual exams because we know that diabetes can cause retinopathy, which is a permanent visual problem that, if treated, can be squelched. But it's not going to be better, but you can prevent it from getting worse. The same types of changes that the same mechanism that causes damage to the visual system is also potentially at work in the auditory system. So it can cause a metabolic type of presbycusis. We think of presbycusis as being old age, but typically it is. But we can see an early onset of that metabolic type of presbycusis in folks who are diabetic that are untreated. And what's really scary is that as many people as we know that are diagnosed with diabetes, there's at least that many more who have it and are undiagnosed. So that it's estimated that there are 30 million cases of diabetes in the U.S., and we know at least 7 million, and the projection is that it could be as high as 15 million that are diabetic and don't even know. The most recent statistics are that about 12% of adults 20 and older are diabetic in the U.S., and that increases to almost a third of people that are 65 and older. So it is a large number. I'm diabetic. It runs through my mom's family, and some of my family are type 1, some of us are type 2, but most of us that are type 2 have onset in our 20s. And you see pictures of me when I was in my 20s. Even my wife didn't recognize me. She wasn't, carrying around a lot of extra weight or anything. But it can have dramatic impact on a lot of organ systems, including the auditory system. And so what happens is you experience damage due to the increased blood sugar levels. You will have damage occurring, particularly to the stria vascularis and to the other structures in the cochlea. And that can lead to hearing loss. Diabetic hearing loss is slightly more common in men than in women. We know that as far as ethnicities, diabetes affects Hispanics and Native Americans and African Americans more than Caucasians. And because it does have an impact on circulation, obviously vision and hearing can be affected. Complications from diabetes are the 7th leading cause of death in the U.S. And that number is probably going to rise as the number of individuals who are diagnosed with it grows. Good news is that if a person's diabetes is well controlled, their risk for complications, problems, vision problems, hearing problems, is really not much higher than the general population. So the good news is, if it's well controlled, it's a very manageable condition. Okay, so that's the key. The big thing is people need to know that they have it, and then they need to be medically managed appropriately, and you can reduce the potential impact. So one of the questions that you're going to definitely want to ask your patients when you're doing your case history, it's not on your form, is are they diabetic? how is it being managed? Are they on insulin? Are they on oral medications? Are they diet controlled? Is it some combination of those? And ask them how well they're controlled. Some people have better control than others. I was lucky until about a year and a half ago through diet and activity and one oral medication, I was able to keep mine really tightly controlled. I never had hypoglycemic events where my blood sugar really dropped. Occasionally it would drop fairly low, but I never had symptoms. It just all of a sudden I was like, I'm going to check. And I rarely had very high readings. Then all of a sudden, about a year ago, I started having yo-yo spikes at either end, and I started insulin. Now things are much more tightly controlled. So it's just one of those things where it's all in how well the condition is managed. So what happens is diabetes is a small vessel disease, and obviously blood vessels in the cochlea are going to be pretty small because the cochlea itself is very small. So the stria vascularis and the vascular membrane are the two structures that are most likely to be affected, and they are really the sensory organs of hearing. So what type of symptoms, first of all, what type of hearing loss will diabetes cause? A conductive, a sensory, a neural, a central, or a mixed? Sensory. And one of the hallmarks is that they will have significantly worse discrimination scores than what their hearing loss would suggest. Now, if they develop neuropathy, which they can, which is an inflammation or irritation of the nervous system, then it is possible for them to develop auditory neuropathy as a result, in which case they would then have also a neural component, so they would truly have a sensory neural hearing loss. And again, particularly if they're having the auditory neuropathy, they may not have very much hearing loss, but they're going to really struggle with discrimination. So you may not have much success in trying a program like LACE with them. You're probably going to have to work on compensatory strategies, speech reading, other modalities. Unfortunately, particularly with older adults, if they're diabetic and they have neuropathy and they have some auditory issues, chances are better than average, they're probably going to have some visual issues as well. So they are really going to struggle because the other sensory modality that we'd like to try and rely on may or may not be available to them. Okay? So just keep that in mind. They may be a challenge for you. Let's talk about some genetic conditions or syndromes that kids can be born with. Have any of you taken a class on genetics before? Or, okay, how much background have you had, like maybe in a biology class or a zoology class on genetics? Does everyone have at least a little bit? Okay, so you know that there's a difference between recessive and dominant expression, and that there's mutational versus. So we are made up of genetic code, and we get our genetic code from each parent. And there can be alterations in specific genes. And when we have an alternate expression or an alternate form of a gene, it's referred to as an allele. And that's usually where we might see some of these conditions that we're going to talk about. So there's some alternate expression of a gene, and that alternate expression may or may not lead to problems. We have conditions that are described as autosomal, meaning that they're on the non-sex chromosome. What's the non-sex chromosome? That's what males and females have in X. Males have two. The Y chromosome is the sex gender chromosome. So if something's autosomal, that means it's going to be propagated on an X chromosome. Does that make sense? Okay. A dominant gene is one where it's going to be present and there's even just one alternate expression. So, meaning that if it's on the X, you get that X that's effective, you're going to have the condition. Okay? So, for women, if there's an X expressed condition, you're going to have a 50-50 chance of having it. For guys, the incidence rate is much higher because they're only getting one X chromosome. A mutation is when there's some sort of a spontaneous change, some fluke change that we can't explain. A recessive gene is a gene that only the condition or the problem will only be expressed if you get it from each parent. So, if you have each of your parents are carriers for a particular condition so that it's in their genetic code, but they don't actually have the condition, and they have offspring, there's an increased likelihood, basically it comes out to about a 1 in 4 chance that rather than a 50-50 chance, it's a 1 in 4 chance that any particular child may be okay. So, and then sex-linked conditions are when the genetic trait is sex-linked, where there's certain conditions where we typically only see it in females, others where we will only see it in males.
You said for mutation, there's a mutations?
No. For a recessive. For a mutation is just that it's some alteration in the gene occurred, but it's not something that was present in either of the parents. Okay, Down syndrome is a mutational condition where the genes because kids who have Down syndrome are infertile, can't reproduce, so it's not something that you're getting from either of them. It's caused by mutation. Okay? Does that kind of make sense? I just want you to kind of have an understanding. So that when we're going through and we talk about the incidences of some of these conditions, you can kind of understand, oh, okay, so that's why that is. So, we have Alport syndrome. And if you have mom has normal genes, dad has an affected X chromosome, it's going to be carried on the X chromosome, not the Y. If they have a daughter, she's going to get an X from each parent. She's going to be affected because she's getting a normal normal from mom, and the Y is not carrier, so the boy does not have the condition. Does that make sense? And Alport syndrome is a syndrome that affects vision as well as hearing and some other bodily systems. So it's a mutational condition. It's X-linked. So if dad has it, then daughters will have it. If mom has it or is a carrier, there's a 50% chance that any child will have it. Why? Because it is a dominant. It's an X-linked dominant condition. So if it's carried on the X, so it's a sex link. So if the dad has it, any girl child will have it because she's getting the bad X from the dad, the X from the mom. If it's a situation where mom has it or is a carrier for it, there's a 50-50 chance depending on if the girl gets the good or the bad X gene. Okay? It is a condition where collagen, which is a support structure within a lot of our organ systems, is not properly constructed. So it's a collagen condition, and the child is going to have problems with their kidneys, with their ears, and with their eyes in particular. They will typically experience nephritis, which is a kidney condition, and they will often experience kidney failure early on in life. So they will need chronic dialysis when they will need kidney transplant early on. Typically, the hearing loss is gradual and it's sensory in nature. Typically by early 30s, so young adulthood, it is noticeable. It may not be severe, but it's becoming noticeable at that point. It's bilateral and it predominantly affects 2,000 hertz and above. Critical speech. So, okay. Apert syndrome is another syndrome, and it results in craniofacial abnormalities as well as limb abnormalities. And with the craniofacial problems, just like with any other condition, the structures of the ear are forming at the same time as the other structures of the head and face. So if you have craniofacial abnormalities, the person is at increased risk for problems with ears and with hearing. Okay? So these are some pictures of what kids with Apert syndrome look like. Some of the limb abnormalities that you might see. They look to me in facial appearance, and you'll see later on, like kids who have Creutzfeldt syndrome to me, but they will typically have these limb abnormalities as well. So that's one of the kind of telltale signs. And I don't know if you can see it or really tell, but this young lady actually has a cataract in her left eye. Kind of see how it's kind of very, that's a side effect that's very common. So we're not sure if this is an autosomal dominant condition or if it is mutational. There's some cases that appear to be autosomal dominant, and there are other cases where there is no family history and so it appears to be mutational. It occurs equally in males and females. There's a 50% chance for offspring of an individual with efforts to pass it on. Okay? So if you have it, and you have children, there's a 50-50 chance they will have it. Okay? That's in one parent. Little parents have it. I would assume it's a 100% chance. It's not. They will have syndactyly, which is that fusion or abnormal expression of their digits. They will have craniosystosis, which is that premature fusion of the skull, like we see, hear about that, and see that in Poussin syndrome. So it particularly affects the mid face and the maxilla. They will typically have conductive hearing loss due to frequent otitis media and often because they have abnormally shaped motor ossicles. If that's the case, if it's due to abnormalities of the middle ear, there are a couple of options. They can do regular hearing aids. They can do bone-implanted hearing aids, or in some cases they will actually go in and provide them with prosthetic ossicles, sort of like what we might see with otosclerosis, so they can overcome some of that conductive loss. That's actually becoming more common. We've gotten more sophisticated in our ability to reconstruct the okay. Another condition that can cause hearing loss is bronchiovenous syndrome. One of my good friends who is an audiologist has this condition, as do both of her sisters and her son. And what you will notice is you have kind of unusually shaped, often smaller ears, and they tend to be low set. They tend to have very short necks, for one thing, but then their ears tend to be kind of low set. And even though they're smaller, they kind of tend to stick out, even more than mine, which is amazing. And you can kind of see it on this little guy. I mean, I would expect to see his ears. Our ears are kind of even playing with our eyes and see how low set his ears are compared to his eyes. I mean, I would expect to see his ears there. It is an autosomal dominant genetic disorder where one abnormal gene gets inherited. That's 90% of the cases. It's mutational in about 10% of the cases. So it can be even. And what happens is during fetal development, early on, there is some disruption in the development of the second branchial arch, and that is what gives rise to the structures of the face and neck, as well as the kidneys and ears. So that's why we see this combination. There's a lot of conditions, genetic conditions, where kidneys are also impacted, and it's because the kidneys are developing and arise out of the same fetal tissue that ears and often eyes. So they will often have preauricular, so front of the ear pits, where it almost looks like, you've ever seen someone that has really bad acne scars, so they have like hot marks? Well, you often see those like a little pimple right in front of the ear. It's very common, as well as those abnormal shapes to the ears. They can have hearing loss that's conductive, sensory, or mixed. Mixed is the most common. They might have preauriculars rather than clefts. They might have tags where they have like little looks like little extra little pieces of flesh. The kidney abnormalities can be mild and unilateral to severe and bilateral. My friend, her one sister has pretty significant kidney problems, and they're talking about the possibility of having to start dialysis. Her other sister doesn't have really any significant problem. She's not had any significant problem with her kidneys. Both of her sisters are profoundly deaf. She has a mild hearing loss. And her hearing loss is around 40 dB or so at 250, and then it gradually rises to like maybe 30, 25 in the mid frequencies, and then at around 4,000 and 8,000, she's in the normal range. So she has that reverse slope. And hers is released. So again, it really depending on her sisters are severe, profound, and they have sensory loss. So even within the same family, you can have different expressions. I think she actually talked to somebody. So she might be. Yeah, for a long time yes. She was, yes. Yeah. So that's Jen. And actually, was she pregnant when she talked to you guys, or had she just had her? Because I had one class where she was pregnant, and then another class. Yeah, I have. So, but anyway, so she's since had a baby, and so ours. Yeah, they actually. I'm not saying this to be disrespectful or gross, but basically when the bacon is firm combined and starts expanding, you basically have a lot of cells. And as they start differentiating and developing different structures, the same cluster of cells that gives rise to the structures of the face and neck also gives rise to the kidneys. So they're developing at the same time. And they are called branchial arches, those clusters of cells. And it's the second branchial arch that gives rise to our kidneys as well as some of the structures. So yeah, that's why it happens so often. But anyway, so we can have basically any type, any severity of hearing loss with this condition, and we can have from virtually just slightly reduced kidney function that really isn't impactful to complete loss of kidney function. Okay. Charge syndrome is fairly common, and charge, you'll notice, is all in capital letters because it's actually an acronym for the different types of abnormalities that we might see. I think it's interesting, again, that if you look at this little gal and you look at this little boy, they look like they could be related. There are some stereotypic facial features. I don't know if you can really see or appreciate it, but this little gal actually has a trait. This little guy does not obviously have one, so maybe that he doesn't have as significant of a case. Ear abnormalities are a common feature. is an autosomal dominant disorder, which the C stands for coloboma, which are abnormalities of the eyes, particularly of the eyelids and the flesh around the eyes. The H is for heart. These kids are prone to heart defects. A is atresia of the conate, which is the opening in the back of the nose, so between the nose and the throat. They often have, they are mouth breathers because the opening, they breathe in through their nose. There's such a constriction. Think about it, what it's like when you're stuck. You find yourself wanting to breathe through your mouth because you can't move the air. They have that not because they're stuffed up, but because the opening that should be nice and wide open is very restricted. R is retardation of growth and development, so they have stunted growth and be small. G is for genitalia. They have problems of the urogenital tract. And then B is for ear. They have problems with their ears. So these kids have multiple medical issues. So what kind of hearing loss do you have? They can have conductive, sensory, neural organs. This is the most common. It's considered to be typically an educational condition, so it's just kind of a thing that happens. But there have been some autosomal dominant inheritance cases. They frequently have, in addition to problems with their ears and their conate, they have lots of they're prone to having lots of cranial nerve dysfunctions. So dysphagia is very common. They often have a facial paralysis or paresis. It's usually worse on one side than the other. They typically have a reduced sensation of smell. They may have problems with eye movement, so a lot of times they'll have strabismus, where their eyes are kind of crossed, or they have trouble with conjugate gaze focusing in. And dysarthria is fairly common as well. So these kiddos are medically complex and often refractory.
Does it have any effect on like cognitive development?
It can. Cognitive issues are not necessarily more common in kids with CHARCH than they are in the general population. I say that with a little trepidation because I feel like I've seen maybe slightly higher incidence in them, or I've seen, when we talk about IQ, we say the normal IQ is 85 to 115. And we don't really say that true cognitive impairment occurs until IQ is out of below 69. A lot of people then that are in that 70 to 84 range, where they have quote unquote borderline cognitive function. And I do think that there's a higher, and this is just a personal observation, this is not, take this to the bank. But I do feel like I've seen a higher number of kids that have CHARGE syndrome that are kind of in that borderline cognitive function range, or at the lower end of the normal spectrum. Someone else had a question.
The first slide said autosomal dominant disorder, but then this one says it's to be
If it is inherited, it would be awesome. But it is typically so if it's gonna be an inherited condition, it follows the autosomal dominant path. But more often than not, it's gonna be an mutation. Okay? So that's charge. So these kiddos are, like I said, they're going to be very medically fragile. You may not encounter a lot of them in school situation. They often in services. Then we have Crouzon syndrome. And the hallmark of Crouzon syndrome is that craniosystostosis, which is the abnormal, premature fusion of the skull. So I'm sure a number of you have held a newborn niece or nephew or friends, and they always say, careful of their soft spot, careful of their soft spot, which is basically a misnomer because there are multiple spots because the skull's not fused together yet. Well, these kids, it's just the opposite. You don't have to worry about their soft spot because they don't have it. But the bones have prematurely fused. And so they have fairly misshapen, and I think somewhat larger. I mean, every baby, their head is like this big, like Charlie Brown. Their head's way too big for their body. But I find that children with Crouzons tend to be more out of proportion. And they all tend to have very prominent high foreheads. This young lady has done a very good job with her hairstyle of masking that. But they tend to have these wide set eyes, prominent forehead, their lips, they tend to be mouth breathers, so they're usually kind of parted. It's mutational or autosomal dominant in adaptive distribution. The midface in particular is what's affected, unlike brachioradial and some of the other syndromes where it's the second brachial arch that's affected. This is due to problems with the first brachial arch. So they have wide set bulging eyes that have shallow sockets. It's not that their eyes are, but the orbits, the sockets of their eyes are unusually shallow. They will frequently have strabismus, which is that crossing of the eyes, that inability to achieve conjugate gaze. They have an underdeveloped maxilla, so they have their palate and their upper jaw are unusually small. Cleft lip and palate are fairly common. They usually have some outer ear abnormalities, and often the pinna may look fine, but they tend to have very small ear canals, really tiny. Yes.
This is just kind of like a curious question, but is all of this happening because like their skull is fused, or is their skull fused at all times? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's sort of like, does the fusion of the skull cause all of this?
Yeah.
And the answer is basically yes. Because of this premature fusion, the sockets around the eyes end up being shallower. You might hear the expression or my wife is saying about my son, I hope he grows into his feet. Because my 11-year-old is now wearing a size 9. I wear a 9.5, maybe a 10, depending on what it is. And sort of like that, because the growth happens so quickly, there wasn't time or space for them to kind of grow into the structures, if that makes sense. And so because of that, so the jaw ends up being smaller, sort of like internally interminiaturized. one thing that I should definitely mention about croissants. As odd as they may look, they have no increased incidence of cognitive disabilities. This is one thing where several of us are going to talk about, Tricia Collins and Drew O'Bannon as well. They, hallmark is normal cognitive function. As a matter of fact, the kids that I work with that have Drew O'Bannon, Tricia Collins, and Tucson, anything with higher on the IQ scale. So yeah, you look at them like, wow, there's really something wrong here. It's not cognitive. I had a cancer. Yes.
I think we looked at this in presentation on the introduction part. Is this the one where they normally have surgery because it's not integrating school?
Yes. Yes. Exactly. And I actually have all posted on our site. I have a couple of really cool videos that I found on YouTube that I use in 127 now when we're talking about craniofacial abnormalities. And you can see some before, during, and after surgery pictures of a young man who has cruise on, and you look at the changes. It's like, wow. This was a kid who I think he lives in Texas or China. It's about 18. It's amazing the transformation of her. They do look very similar, but the kids with croissants typically don't have vision issues going on. Some of those other, they tend to have problems with both parental arch 1 and 2, whereas these kids it's usually just 1. Okay. Good question. That's very perceptive. So. Anyway, croissant, they look very unusual or atypical, but the good news is they're typically cognitively intact. Or the bad news, because they're aware they look different. I show this these pictures because I think that we have an unusual stereotype about what people with Down syndrome look like, and yet I'm not sure that you would necessarily guess that about every one of these kids, particularly the young lady in the upper left there. But they all do. They all have Down syndrome, and it's probably the one that it's the most common. It's the most common genetic condition. It's trisomy 21, meaning there's an extra chromosome 21. It may not be an actual complete copy, it may be a partial copy, and that often determines how stereotypically Down syndrome appearance they look, and will often impact how impaired they are. The mosaicism form is the mildest, and it's really just have kind of a partial replication, and kids that have that, they're going to look like they look out, and those in the upper left were maybe a little bit different, but you wouldn't necessarily say We do know that it occurs more often as mom is older, and also now we're really starting to see evidence of dad is older. We have really good friends of ours who their oldest daughter has Down syndrome, their other two kids do not. Mom and dad are 15 years apart. Dad being older. Mom was in her late 20s when their oldest daughter was born, and dad was older. And so chances are as good as any of that. But there are other two kids too. But it used to be that we only thought that it was the age of the mom that mattered, but now there's increasing evidence that says the age of the dad can also contribute. So the common features, they tend to have hypotonia, that low muscle tone. Heart defects and gastrointestinal defects are common. Grace had to have heart surgery when she was an infant because she had heart defect. They tend to have those stereotypically up-shaped eyes. They usually have small or slightly abnormal shape to their ears. They often have skeletal defects that really more affect the spine than anything else. They're extremely prone to neck injuries because of the fragility of their spine. They have a higher than usual incidence of conductive hearing loss due to increased incidence of otitis media, and they have often abnormalities of the eustachian tube and eustachian tube function. So, and they'll have varying degrees of intellectual impairment. There are kids with Down syndrome that basically have normal intellectual function. You have kids that have Down syndrome that have significant intellectual impairments. Our friends are very active in the Down syndrome society and actually are parent peer counselors, so that if a parent during pregnancy tests positive that their child is going to have Down syndrome, or after, they are available to come and be support peer counselors for those families, and it's a really neat organization. I love Grace to death. I am one of the few people outside of her family that she really clicks with, and in addition to knowing them outside, she was actually in my Sunday school class, and could tend to get loud, and she has some sensory issues, and so she would always sit me out. And I was teaching her in 6th grade, so she was getting ready to graduate and eventually junior high level, and we were at a backyard picnic or something, and I said to her, I was on the side and I said, Grace, what are we going to do tomorrow? I said, I'm going to see you tomorrow in class, because you're moving up with all the big kids. And she was so much. Right here. Everyone around, just blubbering and bawling. She's smart as a whip, manipulative beyond belief. But yeah, so it's really cool. Typically, and this is anecdotally from my friends, they're certainly typically involved. Typically, girls have a better outcome and a higher intellectual capacity than boys. They always say as soon as they get word that a child was born with Down syndrome, they always ask, was it a boy or a girl? And they celebrate if it's a girl, because they typically tend to have better cognitive outcome.
Exactly my question, but is Down syndrome like most common Caucasian people? I feel like I'm not
It's about as common in all ethnicities. I have not, I shouldn't say, I can't say that I've met more than one child with Down syndrome that is from an Asian or Native American background, but I've met a number of others. I just think that in terms of, it depends on where you are, if you live in a place where most people are white, you're not going to notice in minorities. I did notice that, like, when we were in Guatemala, getting our son, and we were only there for a week. But I did notice a number of children in that granted, we also listed a children's home where kids had been left or abandoned, and so there was possibly higher incidence of kids with Down syndrome would fall into that category. That's a good question. How to look into that? My short answer is I've not read anything that says that, but
We don't probably think about that. But I just like thinking about it.
and you're right. So, but I think it's probably a product of environment than anything else. Yes.
Is there a point at which they kind of reach their full intellectual capacity that she is uncontrolled, she's 18 and she's nonverbal and she
Yeah, and typically they will. Like Grace right now, she is in, she attends Montessori High School. She's in the 8th grade. She does get some accommodations. They do alter some of the curriculum for her, but she can do calculations and she can be impulsive and she definitely has some behavioral issues where she can be very things, but overall cognitive function, I mean, their plan is she's going to go to college. And NKU, Northern Kentucky University, actually has a really cool program specifically designed for young adults with Down syndrome. If you're from the Cincinnati area, you might know the name Paul Doherty, who's a sports writer for the Cincinnati Enquirer. His daughter is graduating from NKU in May, and she actually was one of the athletic trainers for one of the men's sports teams, say basketball or baseball team, and they invited her out to see them. Someone else had a question. Aaron? Oh, I'm sorry.
I was just curious, I didn't actually have a question before, but I saw it in this what's the instance of like Down syndrome cognitive autism? Because I have a friend who's over that, and I'm just wondering if it's common.
That's the first time I've ever heard of it.
Really?
Oh, no,
What did she say? I don't even know.
But I'm not encountered someone who had.
Apparently those were not savers. Oh yeah.
That's not.
Well, maybe. No, I doubt it. I doubt he hasn't graded. I bet he would have put him up already. Yeah, probably.
Okay. Well, I mean, it certainly can happen. Let me wrap this up, and I apologize that we had our technical difficulties. EVA syndrome is enlarged vestibular aqueduct. So what happens is that the membrane within the inner ear is enlarged. There's increased fluid pressure, and as a result, that causes problems often with balance and dizziness, as well as with hearing loss. Chromosome 7 has been identified as a potential culprit. They also feel like there may be some environmental triggers, that some kids are predisposed to it, and some sort of barotrauma or something like that can actually cause it. And a child that was born without it. And then there are obviously other genetic factors associated with it. So these kids will have both balance and hearing issues. Guillain-Barré syndrome is another condition where typically they will have unilateral abnormalities. You can look particularly at this little gal. You can see the facial asymmetry. She's obviously had a cleft lip and palate repair. This little guy is this little guy after they did a reconstruction of his ear. How cool is that? I mean, he's got a scar there, but otherwise, I mean, he went from this to that. So they can do a lot. The ENTs and the plastic surgeons can do a lot. This particular syndrome they have, it's also called oculovertebral syndrome. So they have problems with the eyes, with the ears, and with the vertebral column. So they end up having abnormalities in the nose, ears, heart and soft palate, the lips. They often have scoliosis, and they may have underdeveloped internal organs, and they will often have a mixed hearing loss. Which obviously, if they have an ear or an ear canal, you would certainly expect there's going to be some hearing loss. But what's really cool is when they do reconstructive surgery and create it, especially if all the internal structures are normal, they end up having pretty much near normal hearing. It's kind of just kind of so Meniere's disease. I'm not going to go into that a whole lot because you guys are going to end up with people that have it. The big thing for them is their hearing loss is going to be fluctuating, and they're going to have lots of discrimination problems. And you're probably not going to end up working with them much unless they end up in a surgical case where they are surgically deafened because of the problem. Otosclerosis, again, you're probably not going to deal with them very much because if they are using hearing aids, it's a conductive loss, and they do well if things are loud enough. If they are a surgical case, typically they're going to have pretty much full restoration of their hearing, and they're not going to need you. But it's only if the surgery fails, then they may need you because they're going to have pretty significant hearing loss. Hendred syndrome is another chromosome 7 abnormality. It causes hearing loss and thyroid issues. Hearing loss is progressive. It starts at birth or early in childhood, and it is slowly progressive. An enlarged vestibular aqueduct is also common in people that have Hendred syndrome, and they have to be extremely careful to avoid head injury, because if they have an enlarged vestibular aqueduct and they have head injury, it can actually blow out their membranes labyrinth, and they will be found deaf and have significant vertigo issues until the brain centrally compensates for that. Forgot to mention that. Here, Robin, again, is a craniofacial abnormality. They have underdeveloped jaw. They often have some ear abnormalities. They have cleft lip and palate is not at all unusual to see. They have glossoptosis, which is an abnormality of the tongue. Because their lower jaw is so small and the way that their tongue rests, it tends to fall back and obstruct the airway, so they're prone to problems with apnea, so they frequently have to be tracheotomized. But again, this is one of those where they have normal cognitive function. Their breathing problems and swallowing issues are usually the key things that need to be addressed. And then over time, you can see they're already doing it here. They're actually, they've broken the jaw, and they have put a now, maybe his chin's a little bit underdeveloped, but when we consider that basically he has no chin here to there, the outcome's pretty good. Okay? Treacher Collins is another craniofacial syndrome. Again, they will have normal intelligence. The protein treacle is abnormal, and so they have metabolic autosomal dominant problem. They have lots of craniofacial issues, coloboma, underdeveloped jaw, cleft lip and palate. Hirschism, that's usually very and swallowing problems are common. Those outer ear issues can lead to conductive hearing. So that's why this kiddo has a conduction hearing aid. Okay? I love this little gal. She looks like a little elf. She's so anyway, Usher syndrome is another common syndrome, and these kids are going to have one of 3 types. Each type has different manifestation, and it causes progressive blindness and deafness. And depending on which type they have, how quickly that happens, and the severity of the visual and hearing deficits varies. So we actually have a grad student whose brother has Usher's. And then Waardenburg syndrome, you guys are probably all very familiar with this from Han's class. She's actually written a book on the subject, so I probably really can't add anything that you haven't already learned from her. But I have listed some of the prominent features here so that you're familiar. Questions about